Well, hello, friends. It's been a while since I made a video. There has been a lot going on in the world, especially around tanks. Recently, with the Ukrainian and Russian conflict, we have a development of Western armor that is going to be moving over to Ukraine. Now, let's break down some of these numbers. Now, it's important to realize that these numbers are constantly changing as availability and logistics and all that comes into play. But what we know right now is there are 178 Leopard 1 tanks slated to go over to Ukraine from Germany, Denmark, the Netherlands, um, various other countries. There's about 80 Leopard 2 tanks from Germany and others. There are 31, which is a Ukrainian battalion's worth of M1A2 Abrams coming from the US. And there's 14 Challenger 2 tanks that are going to be going over to Ukraine. That's a pretty significant influx of Western armor into that country, who has traditionally had Soviet era tanks. Now, let's talk about some of the advantages of these tanks. We've got greater maneuverability with these Western tanks, the greater backup speed, because the Soviet tanks have primarily, or the Russian tanks, have primarily been bogged down by their backup speed. Also, it may seem trivial, but being able to open up the sights, the gunner sights from inside the vehicle is a huge thing. In some of the T series tanks, they have to get out and actually open those sights from the outside to be able to get them to work. Another benefit of having the Ukrainian Western tank combo is that they're going to have 120 millimeter smoothbore main gun capability that has NATO commonality, minus the Challenger 2 because that uses a different type of rifled 120 millimeter proprietary gun that the British use. These new tanks have incredible night hunting capability, which is a big step up from the old T-64s and the T-80s that are floating around there right now. Getting the M1A2 is going to give the Ukrainians the ability to have a commander's independent thermal viewer, which is going to greatly improve the ability for those tankers to do some hunting. The gunner can be scanning one way, the tank commander can be out scanning somewhere else, and the tank commander can, let the gunner take care of something and then designate and slew that turret over where the commander's looking, and then they can engage, and that commander can keep looking. Really, really cool capability for them. Now, also, having a 4-up tank, so you've got loader, driver, commander, gunner, you're going to have an extra crewman, whereas the T series tanks didn't have, well, the modern T series tanks didn't have a loader. So now you've got an extra person for watch, you've got an extra person for maintenance. That's kind of a win. Now, there are some drawbacks. What are some of those drawbacks? Well, it's a logistics nightmare getting all those parts into Ukraine. Where are we going to do the depot level maintenance? All these vehicles are pretty maintenance heavy too, especially the Abrams with that gas turbine. It's a maintenance heavy monster. Let's not kid ourselves here. There are other drawbacks as well. With great reward comes risk. The Challenger 2 and the Leopard 1, they store ammunition and propellant exposed inside the hull. The Challenger 2 is a little wonky with its hull propellant storage. It's got like a cool container case thing for the propellant in there that's supposedly covered in water. So if that area does get hit by a projectile, it's not going to cause the vehicle to explode as much, perhaps. I've never seen Challenger 2 get hit, so I just can't speak to that. But it is, regardless, keeping ammunition exposed in the hull, even propellant, well, especially propellant, is a risk. Mind you, all of the T series tanks the Ukrainians currently operate have an autoloader carousel that basically contributes to the Soviet space program. So this is kind of a step up. Even though there is a risk, there's also a great reward with it. Remember that the Leopard 2 also has blow-off panels and separate ammunition storage for the rear of the tank. The Abrams is thirsty. It's very, very thirsty. That gas turbine is a very, very thirsty thing. Now, one thing that many people didn't know is that you don't need just JP8 to run the Abrams. It's a multi-fuel system. You can run it off a bunch of different types of fuels. So you don't have to worry about, well, we have to get special, jet fuel to run the Abrams. Not the case. It can run off of a bunch of different fuels. Whatever you put in the Challenger 2, whatever you put in the Leopard 2, whatever you put in the T-72, you can stick that in the Abrams and it'll run. Another drawback to these Western tanks is they are expensive to maintain. As with any tank fleet, right? Think of the T-72 perhaps like an AK-47, where you can beat the ever-living crap out of it and it's going to continue to work. As you digitize systems and make things a little bit more complicated and have some more fancy doodads and gadgets and gizmos to put in those tanks, especially with the proprietary systems that are inherent inside the Leopard 2 and the Challenger 2 and the Abrams, the cost of maintenance is going to go up. So for Ukraine in the middle of a horrendous conflict to have to maintain that fleet, or maybe there's going to be the multinational agreements that are going to be able to provide assistance that way. I'm not quite sure how that's all going to work out, but it is a factor to think about. Now, all of this is all well and good, but we have to remember that a tank is only as good as its crew. And the crews that are being trained by the Western tankers are going to be pretty well trained on these vehicles, I believe. Now, it's not an overnight process. The tankers are going to have to go through some significant training to understand how to operate the thing. They're going to have battalions of Leopards. They're going to have a company of Challenger 2s. They're going to have a battalion of Abrams. And I figure they're probably going to be different areas of operation just for parts, the ease of not having to mix up all the parts of the distribution centers and all that. As far as maintenance on these things, it's going to be an interesting thing. I'm curious to see if General Dynamics sends out field service representatives, also known as FSRs, that are going to go out there and help train the Ukrainian mechanics on these vehicles, whether they're going to be under contract service. I'm not sure what the contract scope is. If there is a contract, more to follow on that if we can get some more information for that. And for the Leopard 2 and the Challenger 2, same question with them. I don't know who's going to go out there, who's going to train them, whether they've got folks going back to their respective countries that have set up a training center of excellence where the Ukrainians can come out. I'm not quite sure how that's all going. I'm sure they keep that pretty close to their belt. So more to follow. It's definitely an exciting time in tank history. The tanks are not dead. Chieftain's got great video on that. But yeah, the armored warfare is not dead. Another video that we're going to be coming up with is the integration of SHORAD at the platoon and the company level. That could be a real game changer. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time.